My God. Mother-in-law, did you seriously come to your own husband's funeral wearing that? Tiffany Albright's voice sliced through the quiet chapel like a slap. Heads turned instantly. Conversation stopped. Every eye landed on me. I stood there in a simple black dress, clean lines, modest cut, nothing flashy. I had chosen it on purpose. Today wasn't about attention. It was about saying goodbye to the man I loved. But to Tiffany, my daughter-in-law, it was an opportunity. This is embarrassing, she continued loudly. You look cheap. Like you just rolled out of a bargain bin. Marcus, my son, leaned toward her, his voice tight. Tiffany, please, we're burying my father. But she wasn't interested in restraint. She had an audience now. No, Marcus. Someone has to say it, she snapped. I work in high-end fashion. I know quality. And that? She pointed at my dress without shame. That is clearance rack trash. Your mother has zero class. Her friends, Candace and Naomi, nodded eagerly, whispering and smirking. A low murmur rippled through the pews. I stayed silent, my hands folded, my face calm. I let them believe their words were cutting me apart. Poor Elias, Tiffany said, raising her voice even more. He must be turning in his grave, seeing his widow couldn't even dress properly for his funeral. How humiliating for this family. Tears filled my eyes, but not from grief alone. Beneath the sorrow was something else. Rage. Controlled. Patient. She had no idea that the cheap dress she mocked cost $80,000. No idea that I owned the fashion house she proudly worked for as a sales associate. Just look at her, Tiffany went on. She can't even afford a decent outfit. Marcus, you really should give your mother some money. I almost smiled. If only she knew my closet held over 200 designer gowns. If only she knew my bank balance had more zeros than days in a year. If only she knew her termination letter was already signed, sitting in my private office. My daughter Belle touched my arm gently. Mom, don't listen to her. She's being cruel. But I wanted this to continue. You know what, Marcus? Tiffany said dramatically, turning to her husband. When we have children, I hope they never end up like your mother. So basic. So clueless. She looked at me with fake pity. Her friend snickered. Candace laughed and added, she's right. I work retail too. That dress couldn't have cost more than $100. If they had known the mother-of-pearl buttons alone were worth $500 each. Exactly, Tiffany said proudly. That's why I say she has no class. At my boutique, we serve sophisticated women. Women who understand elegance. She waved her hand at me dismissively. Marcus stared at the floor. Silent. As always. Tiffany, that's enough, Belle said sharply. No, I said softly, finally speaking. My voice trembled just enough. She's right. I don't understand elegance the way she does. Tiffany's face lit up with triumph. At least you admit it, she said. It's not your fault you were born without taste. But you could try not to embarrass the family. Her friends nodded approvingly. Naomi added with false sympathy, the poor thing. It must be hard not having the means. Exactly, Tiffany said. Imagine showing up to your husband's funeral dressed like you're going grocery shopping. No common sense at all. Whispers spread through the chapel. What a shame. So embarrassing. Poor woman. Perfect. And those shoes, Tiffany continued, pointing at my black pumps. They look like flea market junk. I'd be ashamed to step outside in those. Those shoes were custom made. $12,000. But she would never guess. She leaned closer to me and lowered her voice. Listen, I know you don't have much money. Next time, I can lend you something from my closet. I have connections at the best stores. The irony was delicious. This woman earned barely $3,000 a month selling my designs. I personally signed her paychecks. That's very kind of you, Tiffany, I said quietly. I wouldn't want to trouble you. Oh, it's no trouble, she replied with a fake smile. It's Christian charity. Any decent person would help someone, limited. Limited. Her friends murmured their approval. I stayed silent. And I let her keep talking. Because the deeper she dug, the harder her fall would be. The word limited echoed in my mind. If only they knew that my limitations included owning 17 luxury boutiques, 3 textile factories, and a personal fortune well over $100 million. Tiffany wasn't finished. Turning toward the congregation, she raised her chin like a lecturer addressing a classroom. I think we can all learn something from this, she announced. The importance of education. Of ambition. Of not settling for mediocrity. Soft applause followed. She had done it, turned my husband's funeral into her own performance of moral superiority. Poor Elias, she sighed dramatically. He was always worried about his wife. He used to say he didn't know how she'd survive without him. She was wrong. My husband had worried about me, but not because I was weak or helpless. He worried because my heart was too soft. Because I forgave too easily. Serafina, Elias used to tell me, when I'm gone, don't let anyone trample on you. That day had arrived. After the funeral, I drove home in my old 2015 Honda Civic, a car I kept on purpose. My private garage held a Bentley, a Mercedes S-Class, and a Porsche, but no one needed to know that. Today, I was still the woman they believed me to be, the poor widow, the unrefined mother-in-law, the woman with no elegance. When I reached my modest apartment, I slipped off my $12,000 pumps and poured myself a glass of wine, a rare vintage Bordeaux worth $5,000 a bottle. To the outside world, I was the woman who bought boxed wine on sale. My phone rang. Mom, Belle said softly, I'm so sorry about today. Tiffany was horrible. It's all right, sweetheart, I replied, letting my voice sound tired. I'm used to her comments. It's not right, Belle insisted. At Dad's funeral? That was cruel. Belle didn't know the truth. I had chosen years ago to keep my children unaware of my wealth. It made life simpler. And it revealed people for who they truly were. I'll talk to Marcus tomorrow, she said. He can't let his wife treat you like that. No, I said quickly. Please don't. I don't want trouble in their marriage. But trouble had already begun. Tiffany just didn't know it yet. After the call, I went to my private study, a room hidden behind a bookshelf. Inside were the documents of my real life, company contracts, financial records, and employee files. Including Tiffany Albright. Sales associate. Level 2. Base salary, $3,000 a month plus commission. I reviewed her file carefully. 3 written warnings for tardiness. 2 customer complaints about arrogance. 1 supervisor note describing her unwarranted sense of superiority. Perfect. I picked up my business phone and called Janice, my HR director. Miss Coleman, I'm very sorry for your loss, she said sincerely. Thank you, Janice. I need you to handle something tomorrow. Of course. Tiffany Albright. Review her performance over the last 6 months. Thoroughly. Any particular concern? She's shown disrespect toward customers. That's not something I tolerate. Janice understood immediately. She had worked with me for 15 years. I'll prepare the documentation. Prepare everything, I said calmly. But we'll wait for the right moment. After hanging up, I leaned back in my Italian leather chair. Tiffany's humiliation had only been the appetizer. Elias had always warned me, some people mistake kindness for weakness. For 40 years, he had been my shield, my silent partner in building an empire while living in the shadows. Now he was gone. And I would protect myself. The next day, while Tiffany bragged online about her charity, I was reviewing company reports in my executive office. Estelle, my assistant of 20 years, entered with coffee and documents. The downtown boutique is performing well, she said. Sales are strong. But there are personnel issues. Go on. Tiffany Albright has multiple complaints. She comments on who can and can't afford merchandise. I smiled slightly. Anything else? She's often late. Uses her phone excessively. Yesterday, security saw her taking photos with unpaid merchandise. Every word sealed her fate. Schedule a management meeting for Friday, I said. Any reason? 4 personnel changes. The week unfolded exactly as expected. Tiffany paraded her false generosity to the family. On Wednesday, Marcus called. Mom, Tiffany said she offered to help you with your wardrobe. She was very kind, I replied quietly. I know Dad handled the finances, he continued, and things must be hard now. If you need money. The irony was painful. I'll manage with your father's pension, I said. Well. Tiffany says your place is pretty basic. She's right, I said gently. I don't understand fashion like she does. I heard the satisfaction in his voice. She works at a very exclusive boutique, he added. They really trust her. If only he knew. She might even get promoted, Marcus continued. Junior manager. Interesting. After hanging up, I called Estelle. No promotion planned, she confirmed. In fact, her supervisor is considering probation. Excellent, I said. One more thing, investigate their finances. The results were delightful. Debt everywhere. Credit cards. Car loan. Salary advance. And a mortgage application, dependent entirely on Tiffany's imaginary promotion. Friday arrived. I dressed simply but impeccably and walked into my boutique. Good morning, Miss Coleman, Diane greeted me. Management is waiting. As I passed through the store, every employee worked professionally, except Tiffany. She leaned on the counter, phone to her ear, laughing. My mother-in-law is pathetic, she said loudly. She showed up to her husband's funeral dressed like a charity case. A customer waited. Unserved. I work at the most exclusive boutique in the city, Tiffany bragged. My boss trusts me. I'm getting promoted next week. Lie after lie. And the funniest part, she laughed. She actually thinks she looked elegant. I stopped walking. And finally, it was time. The poor old woman has no idea what real fashion is. That was the moment I decided to step forward. Excuse me, I said quietly. Tiffany turned. For a brief second, recognition crossed her face. She clearly wasn't used to seeing me inside a luxury boutique, certainly not looking composed. Oh, mother-in-law, she said, covering her phone with her hand, irritation obvious. What are you doing here? I came to do a bit of shopping, I replied calmly. Marcus gave me some money and said you could help me choose something appropriate. Her attitude shifted instantly. The chance to educate me thrilled her. Oh, wonderful, she said brightly into the phone. I have to go. I'm helping my mother-in-law stop embarrassing herself. She hung up and slowly scanned me from head to toe, her expression dripping with judgment. All right, she said. First, we need to establish a budget. This isn't some flea market you're used to. How much did Marcus give you? $500, I lied. She laughed openly. 500, she scoffed. Oh my God. You can barely buy earrings here. But fine, let's see what we can do with that. She guided me straight to the accessories section, the least expensive area of the store. These scarves are on sale, she said, lifting one. $200 each. They're pretty and could add a little class to your look. She rubbed the fabric between her fingers. Feel this silk? This is elegance. Not the things you usually wear. The scarf was from my spring collection. I had personally overseen its design. It's beautiful, I said softly. Of course it is, Tiffany replied smugly. I have excellent taste. That's why my bosses are promoting me. Just then, Diane approached us. Tiffany, she said evenly, Miss Coleman is waiting for you upstairs. Tiffany's color drained. My boss, she whispered. She's here? Yes. She said it was urgent. I'm helping a client, Tiffany protested. I'll take care of the lady, Diane said diplomatically. Tiffany turned to me, irritation flickering in her eyes. I have an important work matter. I'll be back shortly. Of course, I replied gently. Take your time. I watched her hurry toward the stairs, completely unaware she was walking straight into her own undoing. I stayed downstairs, enjoying the irony. Diane returned and leaned toward me. How was her performance? Worse than expected, I said quietly. She destroyed herself. The cameras caught everything, Diane added. Her phone call too. Let her wait, I said. I want her nervous. I took a slow walk through the boutique. The staff worked with professionalism and care, everyone except the woman currently unraveling upstairs. I stopped near a young associate named Chloe. Excuse me, I said, pretending to browse. What did you think of the service from the woman who was here earlier? The one with curly hair. Chloe stiffened. You mean Tiffany? Yes. She hesitated. It's not my place to judge my colleagues. That's fair, I smiled. She did seem confident. I'd rather help you, Chloe said quickly. What are you looking for? Her discretion impressed me. I'm just waiting, I replied. Have you worked here long? 6 months. It's my first job in luxury retail. I really enjoy it. And the work environment? Chloe glanced toward the stairs. Most people here are wonderful. Very professional. She paused. But some forget themselves. They think working here makes them better than others. Have you seen that happen? Yes. Some employees judge customers before speaking to them. And what were you taught during training? That every client deserves respect, she said firmly. Miss Coleman says real elegance comes from humility. My heart lifted. She sounds like a wise woman, I said. She is, Chloe smiled. Everyone admires her. At that moment, Tiffany came down the stairs, her face tight with confusion. Mother-in-law, she snapped, didn't anyone help you? This young lady was wonderful, I replied, gesturing toward Chloe. Tiffany sneered. She's new. I'm the expert. Chloe stepped away quietly, dignity intact. Did you find your boss? I asked innocently. She must have stepped out, Tiffany replied quickly. Probably about my promotion. Naturally. Well, I said, shall we keep shopping? Of course, she said eagerly. Especially since I'll soon be manager. What changes would you make? I asked. A dress code for customers, she said proudly. We can't let just anyone walk in looking like that. And if they don't qualify? I'd suggest other stores. Luxury clients shouldn't feel uncomfortable. She led me to the most expensive section, my finest creations. These are stunning, she said, lifting a gown. But obviously not for you. She smiled smugly. A client gifted me one like this. Another lie. It's lovely, I said. Yes, she nodded. But unrealistic for you. She steered me toward clearance racks. This gray one is $400. Perfect for women your age. What do you think? I asked. For someone like you, she replied bluntly, it's fine. You don't have the presence for exclusive designs. I met her eyes calmly. Interesting philosophy, I murmured. She smiled proudly. That's why I'm good at this job. And right then, the truth was seconds away from catching her. Look, mother-in-law, Tiffany said, waving her hand toward a rack of gowns, these dresses are stunning, but completely out of your budget. They run anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. She lifted one of my favorite designs, a champagne-colored gown with hand-embroidered details. "See this?" she said proudly. "This is real haute couture. I actually have one just like it at home. A very important client gifted it to me because she loved my service." Another lie. Employees were strictly forbidden from accepting gifts, and I personally reviewed every sales record. "It's beautiful," I said, running my fingers over the fabric. "Yes," she replied dismissively, "but not for you. We need something more realistic. Something that matches your current level." She led me to the back of the store, where clearance items from past seasons were kept. "These are more your range," she said, pulling out a gray dress marked down to $400. "Perfect for women your age." The dress was from my collection, but from 3 years ago. I had discontinued it myself for failing to meet my standards. "What do you think?" I asked. She shrugged. "Honestly, it's nothing special. But for someone like you, it's fine. You don't have the figure or the presence for the truly exclusive pieces." Her words hurt, but not because they were aimed at me. They hurt because someone this shallow worked for my company, representing my name and my values. "You know what, Tiffany?" I said calmly. "I think you're right about my lack of style." Her face lit up. "I'm glad you can admit that," she said smugly. "That's the first step toward improvement." "Just one question," I continued. "What if someone looked poor but actually had a great deal of money? How should they be treated?" She laughed outright. "That only happens in movies," she said. "People with money don't disguise themselves. If someone dresses like you, they don't have resources. It's impossible." "I see. Besides," she added, "why would rich people hide it? My VIP clients want their wealth seen, designer clothes, jewelry, luxury cars." "That's how you know." "Very logical," I said quietly. "That's why I'm good at this job," she said proudly. "I know exactly who deserves what level of service." At that moment, Estelle stepped into the store. She spotted me immediately and walked over. "Ma'am," she said with a polite smile, "they're waiting for you in the office." Tiffany frowned. "Excuse me, who are you?" "I'm Miss Coleman's personal assistant." Tiffany turned to me, confused. "What does my mother-in-law have to do with your boss?" Estelle looked at me for confirmation. I gave a small nod. "Your mother-in-law is my boss." The color drained from Tiffany's face. The silence that followed was suffocating. "What?" she whispered. "That's not possible." "Marifina Coleman," Estelle said calmly, "is the founder and owner of this entire chain of boutiques." Tiffany stared at me as if I had transformed into someone else. "No, you live in that small apartment. You drive that old car. Your clothes. My $80,000 dress?" I interrupted gently. "The one you mocked at my husband's funeral?" She swallowed hard. 80,000? And the $12,000 shoes you said looked like flea market trash. Her knees buckled. "But I've worked for you for 2 years." "That's correct," I said evenly. "And during those 2 years, I've received several reports about your behavior." Estelle opened a folder. "Would you like me to read them?" "Yes," I said. She should hear them. Tiffany collapsed into a chair. March 15th, Estelle read. Client ignored for 20 minutes because employee determined she lacked the economic profile. No, that's not. April 22nd, Estelle continued. 60-year-old client treated with condescension and directed only to clearance items. Tiffany sobbed. May 8th. Employee used personal phone for 2 hours, ignoring customers. What would you like to explain, Tiffany? I asked quietly. Your behavior here, or how you humiliated me at my husband's funeral. I didn't know who you were, she cried. That's the point, I replied. Your respect depends on money. I stepped closer. Tell me, How would you have behaved if you had known? She couldn't answer. Exactly, I said. You would have hidden who you truly are. Employees were now watching from a distance. Estelle, I said, read the last report. This morning, Estelle said. Employee was recorded insulting a client, who turned out to be her family member. Multiple policy violations. And, I added, she lied about a promotion and applied for a mortgage based on it. Tiffany looked up in terror. How do you know about that? I know everything about the people who work for me. Estelle continued. Over $60,000 in debt. Expenses exceeding income by 300%. Multiple unreported salary advances. Unreported, I repeated softly. Which makes this fraud. Tiffany broke completely. I needed the money, she sobbed. To maintain a lifestyle. You couldn't afford, I finished. While mocking those you believed were beneath you. The irony was perfect. Tiffany, I said, my voice firm and cold, I'm not upset that you didn't know who I was. I leaned in slightly. I'm upset by how you treated the woman you thought I was. It wasn't your intention to show your true character, I said quietly. But that's exactly what you did. I turned to Estelle. Do you have the documents? Yes, ma'am. Everything is ready. Tiffany's eyes darted between us, panic rising. What documents? Your termination papers, I replied calmly. Her face collapsed. No, please. I need this job. We have debts, payments, the new house. The house you planned to buy with money from a promotion that never existed? She dropped to her knees. I swear I'll change. I'll be different. You're 32 years old, Tiffany, I said, stepping closer. If you haven't learned basic human decency by now, you're not suddenly going to. But I'm family, she cried. I'm your daughter-in-law. Exactly, I said coldly. And that makes what you did unforgivable. Estelle handed me the folder. Effective immediately, I said, showing Tiffany the papers. You are terminated. You can't do this. This is personal revenge. I let out a short laugh. This is business policy, customer mistreatment, falsified information, misuse of company time, and ethical violations. But Marcus is going to learn many things today, I interrupted. Including how his wife humiliated his mother at his father's funeral. She sobbed uncontrollably. Please. One more chance. You already had it, I said firmly. For 2 years. And especially on the day my husband was buried. I turned to Estelle. Call security. No. Tiffany screamed. I'm family. Family shows respect, I replied. You chose cruelty. She rushed toward me, hands clasped. Please think about your son. You'll ruin our marriage. You ruined your marriage, I said softly, the moment you mocked his mother in public. But he'll hate me. He'll understand, especially after he sees the recordings. Her face drained. Recordings? Every word. Every insult. Every lie. Security arrived moments later. You have 5 minutes to clear your locker and return your badge. This is abuse of power, she hissed. No, I replied sharply. Abuse of power was humiliating a 70-year-old widow because you thought she was powerless. But you have millions, she cried. I only had this job. And whose fault is that? I asked. Did I force you to lie? To live beyond your means? To fake promotions? A young employee, Chloe, approached nervously. Ma'am, do you need anything? Yes, I said. Watch carefully. This is why we treat every customer with respect. Tiffany glared at me. You're using this as a lesson? Yes, I said evenly. Your behavior will be used in training as an example of what never to do. That's humiliating. You humiliated me at my husband's funeral, I replied. This is accountability. Diane, the supervisor, stepped forward. Should we document this for the other branches? Absolutely, I said. Let it be a warning. Tiffany turned to Diane, desperate. Tell her I'm a good worker. Diane shook her head. I warned you many times about how you treated older customers. Why? I asked Tiffany directly. Why treat people like they're beneath you? She couldn't answer. Because you thought there'd be no consequences, I finished for her. Security escorted her away. She turned back one last time. What will you tell Marcus? The truth, I said. Everything. She had no reply. Once she was gone, silence filled the boutique. In my stores, I said to the employees, every customer matters. Always. They nodded. Later that afternoon, Marcus came to my apartment, shaken. Mom. Tiffany says you own the boutique. I took a deep breath. Sit down. It's time you knew the truth. I led him to the hidden study behind my bookshelf. When the door opened, his breath caught. This, I said, is what your father and I built over 40 years. His voice trembled. We're rich? Yes. Why hide it? So you'd grow up with values, not entitlement. He stared at the documents, overwhelmed. And Tiffany? I handed him the folder. Read. As he scanned the reports, his hands began to shake. This can't be a misunderstanding, I said quietly. This is who she is when she thinks no one important is watching. A misunderstanding? I repeated quietly as I pulled out the next file. And this one. And this one. Each report showed the same pattern: disrespect, judgment, and abuse of position. But the most important thing, Marcus, I said, meeting his eyes, isn't what she did at work. It's what she did to me. He looked up sharply. What did she do to you? At your father's funeral, your wife humiliated me. Publicly. She mocked my clothes, called me classless, said I embarrassed the family. She compared me to a beggar, in front of everyone. Marcus went pale. Mom. Tiffany told me she was only trying to help. Help? I said softly. You call it help when someone tells your grieving mother she's pathetic? He looked away. I didn't think. That's the problem, I interrupted. You didn't think. You assumed she was right. And because of that, you didn't defend me. He had no answer. There's more, I continued, pulling out another folder. Your wife has been lying about a promotion that never existed. You applied for a mortgage based on money she was never going to earn. How do you know all this? Because I'm a businesswoman, Marcus. And when someone attacks me, I look at everything. I showed him the numbers: credit cards maxed out, constant salary advances, spending far beyond income. You're over $60,000 in debt, I said quietly. Living a lifestyle you can't afford. He buried his face in his hands. Your wife pretended to be wealthy while mocking people she believed were poor, I said. Including me. So what happens now? He asked, his voice hollow. Now you decide what kind of man you want to be, I said. Can you stand beside a woman who humiliated your mother at your father's funeral? Or can you admit you married someone who doesn't share our values? She's my wife, he whispered. And I'm your mother, I replied. The woman who raised you. Who taught you dignity, humility, and respect. Silence stretched between us. What do you want me to do? He finally asked. I want you to choose, I said. And live with that choice. He stood and walked to the window. My whole world is falling apart. No, I said gently. Your false world is falling apart. Now you have a chance to build something real. He turned back, tears in his eyes. Mom. I'm sorry I didn't defend you. That's the first step, I said. The second is deciding whether you want to stay married to someone who believes cruelty is acceptable. I need time. Take it, I said. But understand, some decisions can't be postponed forever. 2 days later, my phone rang at 6 in the morning. It was Belle. "Mom, what is going on?" she cried. "Marcus called me in tears. He says you're a millionaire and Tiffany got fired." "Yes," I said calmly. "It's true." "When did this happen? Why didn't you tell us?" "Come home this morning," I said. "It's time you know everything." 2 hours later, Belle sat in my living room, staring at the same documents I had shown Marcus. Her reaction was different. "Why didn't you trust us?" she asked quietly. "I did trust you," I said. "Enough to let you grow up without money shaping who you became. But I could have had more opportunities." "And would you be the same person?" I asked. She paused. "I don't know." "I do," I said gently. "You'd have grown up entitled. Look at what happened to Marcus." "He married someone awful," Belle said bitterly. "Yes," I replied. "And that tells me he was drawn to what he thought he lacked: status, image, approval." Belle shook her head. "That's painfully accurate." "And you?" she asked. "What do you think of my choices?" I smiled. "You became a teacher. You serve children who need kindness. You married a good man. Your values are intact. So we inherit all this now?" "One day," I said. "If you prove you can manage it responsibly." "And if Marcus stays with Tiffany?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. "Estelle. Miss Coleman, Tiffany Albright is here. She says she needs to see you urgently." I looked at Belle. "Would you like to meet your sister-in-law, without the mask?" Belle stood up. "I'm coming with you." "Good," I said. "Let's go. It's time you see exactly what kind of person your brother married." An hour later, Belle and I arrived at my executive office in the company's main building. It was a place my children had never seen before: marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, designer furniture, and original artwork on the walls. "My God, Mom," Belle whispered. "This is unbelievable." 40 years of hard work," I replied quietly. Estelle met us in the lobby. "She's been waiting since 8 this morning," she said. "She insists she won't leave until she speaks with you." "Perfect," I said. "Send her in after 5 minutes." Belle and I took our seats. I sat behind my mahogany desk. Belle chose a chair to the side, where she could see everything. When Estelle escorted Tiffany in, the change in her was shocking. The arrogance was gone. Dark circles framed her eyes. Her makeup was smudged. Her clothes were wrinkled, as if she hadn't slept. "Miss Coleman," she began immediately. "Thank you for seeing me. I know I made mistakes, but I need you to understand my situation." "Sit down, Tiffany." That's when she noticed Belle. "Belle? What are you doing here?" "Hello, Tiffany," Belle replied calmly. "I'm here to see people for who they really are." Tiffany flushed, then turned back to me. "I've come to ask for a second chance. I know I behaved badly, but I can change." "You can change?" I asked. "Then tell me exactly what you think you did wrong." She hesitated. "Well, I shouldn't have spoken that way about you at work. And I shouldn't have used my phone during work hours." "Anything else?" She thought. "I shouldn't have been late sometimes." Belle and I exchanged a glance. She truly didn't understand. "What about the funeral?" I asked gently. "The funeral?" she repeated. "Yes. My husband's funeral. Do you remember what you did there?" "I was trying to help you with your image," she said. "I thought if I gave you advice." "Do you really believe publicly humiliating someone is helping?" Belle interrupted. "I wasn't humiliating her," Tiffany said defensively. "I was just being honest." "There it is," I said quietly to Belle. "She doesn't think she did anything wrong." "But I can learn," Tiffany pleaded. I'll take classes. Therapy. Anything. Why? I asked. Because I need the job, she admitted. We're drowning in debt. Marcus will hate me if we lose everything. You haven't mentioned hurting me once, I said calmly. Are you sorry for what you did, or just sorry it had consequences? She opened her mouth but couldn't answer. There's a difference, I continued. Did you feel remorse at the funeral, or only after you learned who I really am? Tears spilled down her face. Please don't destroy my life over one mistake. One mistake? Belle stood up. You humiliated a 70-year-old widow on the worst day of her life. I pulled out another folder. I also have reports from family gatherings, comments about my clothes, my house, my lack of class. They were just casual remarks, Tiffany said weakly. No, Belle said firmly. They were exactly how you really see her. Tiffany turned to Belle desperately. We're family. Family treats each other with respect, Belle replied. Something you never did. At 32 years old, I said, standing up, if you haven't learned basic respect, you won't learn it now. That's not fair. You know what isn't fair? I said quietly. Humiliating a grieving widow. Creating a toxic workplace. Judging human worth by appearances. My character can change, she sobbed. Your behavior can change when it benefits you, I said. Your character already showed itself. She collapsed into tears. There is one thing you can still do, I said. She looked up hopefully. Tell Marcus the full truth. Why you married him. How you lied. What you really think of his family. And then you'll give me my job back? No. Her face fell. Do it because it's right, I said. You will never work for my company again. What Marcus does next is his decision. She stood slowly, defeated. You've destroyed me. No, I replied. You destroyed yourself. I simply refused to stay silent. After she left, Belle and I sat quietly. Do you think Marcus will leave her? Belle asked. I hope so, I said. And if he doesn't, then I didn't raise the man I believed I did. That night, Marcus called. Mom, she told me everything. The lies. The debt. What she really thinks of our family. I'm sorry, I said softly. I asked her for a divorce. Relief and sadness mixed in my chest. How do you feel? Broken, he admitted. But free. Come see me tomorrow, I said. We have a lot to talk about. The next day, my children sat in my living room, finally knowing the truth. After 40 years of silence, nothing was hidden anymore. Mom, Marcus said quietly, I want to formally apologize, not just for failing to defend you at the funeral, but for all the years I didn't truly appreciate everything you did for us. I want to apologize too, Belle added. For questioning your decision to keep the truth from us. I understand now, you gave us something far more valuable than money. You gave us values. Their apologies touched me, but I shook my head gently. You don't need to apologize. You both acted with the information you had at the time. Marcus took a deep breath. So, what happens now? Now, I said, standing and walking toward my desk, it's time for you to learn about your inheritance. I laid out the documents I had prepared years ago, my estate divided equally between them, but with clear conditions. Marcus, I said, you will inherit the boutiques and textile factories. But there's one requirement. What is it? You will work in the business for 5 years, starting from the very bottom, as a floor salesperson. You will learn every part of the operation, earn respect the right way, and understand what it means to serve people. Marcus nodded without hesitation. I accept. Belle, I continued, you will inherit the real estate holdings and financial investments. Your condition is different. I'm listening. I want you to use a significant portion of that wealth to create charitable foundations, especially focused on education for low-income children. Tears filled her eyes. Mom, that's perfect. There's one final condition for both of you, I said firmly. One that is non-negotiable. They leaned forward. You are never to use your wealth to mistreat or belittle others. The money you inherit comes with the responsibility to uplift people, not look down on them. And if I ever discover otherwise, you will lose your inheritance immediately. Understood, they said together. 6 months later, I was reviewing reports in my office when Estelle entered with a smile. You have a visitor, she said. And I think you'll want to see this. Marcus walked in wearing a boutique sales uniform. But more than his clothes had changed, there was a calm confidence in his eyes. Hey, Mom, he said warmly. Do you have a minute for one of your employees? I smiled. How's your first month? The hardest job I've ever had, he admitted. And the most rewarding. He told me about a woman he had helped the day before, a widow, simply dressed, clearly careful with her money. My instinct was to send her to clearance, he said. But I didn't. I treated her like every other client. She bought a $50 scarf, but the smile on her face. Mom, she said no one had treated her that kindly in years. My heart swelled. That, I said softly, is what your father and I tried to teach you. He nodded. I finally understand. I took his hands. Your father would be so proud of you. Are you proud of me? He asked. Immensely. Before leaving, he added, thank you for not letting me stay married to someone who didn't respect you. You taught me that real love means protecting the people you love, especially when they can't protect themselves. As for Tiffany, I later heard she was working at a department store and struggling financially. Do you feel bad about that? I was asked. I feel bad about the time I lost being blind, Marcus said. But not about the consequences of her actions. 3 months later, my phone rang unexpectedly. It was Tiffany. I wanted to thank you, she said. For teaching me the hardest lesson of my life. I finally understand that respect has nothing to do with money, and everything to do with how you treat people. After the call, I felt a deep sense of peace. Revenge had never been the goal. Protecting values was. That evening, as I watched the sunset from my office, I thought of Elias. My love, I whispered, I finally learned to defend myself. And our children will be just fine. Justice didn't arrive as vengeance, but as growth. And that mattered more than anything. Did you enjoy this story? Tell me which city you're listening from in the comments speech balloon. If you'd like to support the channel, you can send a super thanks, it helps me bring you more real-life stories like this. On your screen, you'll see 2 more powerful life stories I highly recommend. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. With love and respect, Whiteheart.